'cause you're so strong. I wanna be so strong. I wanna be just like you. I wanna be just like you. When I grow old, when I grow old.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Becoming Brittany podcast. It's your girl, Brittany, the host, your host, and I am just, as always, excited that we're doing another episode together. So are y'all ready? We're getting ready to jump in, and I was thinking about some of the topics that I wanted to talk about on the podcast. Usually when something comes to me, you all, I literally put it in my phone, and it's usually conversations that I wish somebody would have had with me, or conversations that I have with myself, all right? And so today, I want to talk about something that's like really practical, and it's, to sum it up, is how to have a hard conversation. I don't know about you all, but throughout life, I have not always liked confrontation. And so a lot of times, as I've been growing and developing as a woman and as a leader, I used to like really shun away from having hard conversations and just confrontation in general. But as I'm learning, managing different teams and staff and my own life and all of those different pieces, that one of the things that helps keep peace in my life is having clarity, okay? And one of the ways that I'm able to have clarity is to be able to have conversations and say what needs to be said and get the clarity that I need, and sometimes on the other side of something that may seem hard. So if you're anything like me, I want us to talk a little bit about this today, and I want to give you just a few tips and tools, things that I am currently learning and I am putting into practice. Recently, I had to have a hard conversation at work. And it was something that I had been feeling and sensing for a while, but I'm learning the older I get how powerful my words are. So let me tell you that your words are very, very powerful, okay? And so what I'm learning with the power of my words is I don't want to be so quick to say things before I've really vetted my heart, before I've really considered and really prayed and really processed what it is that I want to say. Because the older I get, the more I'm realizing not only are my words powerful, but I have influence, okay? And I ain't the only one in this having this conversation right now that has power and influence. You, ma'am, you, sir, your words have power, and you have so much more influence than what you realize and what you often give yourself credit for. And so when you realize that your life has influence, you have to be mindful that you don't always react, but you choose to respond, okay? In my dictionary, those two things are completely different. I can think of times in my life where I have just reacted to something, right? But I also can think of times in my life where I've taken out the time to properly respond to what I needed to respond to, all right? So now that I'm in this place in my life where I understand that my words have power, that it's important how I respond to things because of the level of influence that I have on my teams, on my family, on people that I may not even know, it matters how I move. And I want to tell you that too, because I think a lot of times we live in this idea that this is my life and I do what I want to do when I want to do it and how I want to do it. And yes, that is true, sis. That is true. This is your life. Yes, it is. But every single decision that you make and the things that you do have an impact on somebody else. And it's going to either impact them positively or it's going to impact them negatively. And that's something that I try to keep in mind with every single decision that I make, that is always impacting somebody else. So back to story time. I had to have this hard conversation, right? And I haven't always managed hard conversations well. And so I want to tell y'all some of the things that I did. I felt like once I had the hard conversation, it was probably one of the best hard conversations I've ever had. And y'all, I was so proud of myself on the other side of it, because nobody knows how far you've come but you. Like, you've been with yourself all your life, right? And so I was proud of myself, you all, because one, I had the conversation and I did not cry the whole time. Now, let me back this up, y'all. Let me back this up, okay? Because your girl is a crybaby, and it's nothing wrong with crying. Actually, I am a heavy advocate for crying, okay? Because crying, baby, it got benefits. Maybe we could talk about that later. But I felt like I had matured to this place, y'all. I had gotten to this place where I was able to communicate where I was and communicate how I felt and communicate what I needed and my boundaries from this sober place. So that was like my number one win, all right? And then I just felt like I approached it from such a mature perspective. I didn't accuse anybody. I just spoke to where I was and how things were impacting me and what I plan to do moving forward. Y'all, it was so liberating. And that's one of the reasons that I want to invite you to lean in to hard conversations, because a lot of times we find ourselves carrying all of this stuff because we have not released it in a healthy way, right? You can have, somebody offends you or something happens and you don't say anything. It's either two things happen, y'all. Either you don't say anything and you like, ooh, but you're just going to keep it moving. Because if you go too long without saying something, that one good day, they going to try you, huh? And then they trying what they gonna get, another version of you, all right? And so we wanted to, but y'all know I'm telling the truth. We want to avoid those things, right? By being able to be, y'all know we talk about this often, being able to be self-aware of where we are and what we need and processing it so we can respond to things a certain type of way. So that's how my conversation went. I won't give y'all all the details, but I was super proud of myself. And for me, it showed the work I've been putting in to my own growth and development because I was able to handle myself and manage that situation that way. So if you are having to have a hard conversation and you've been avoiding it and you've been dreading it and you've been getting anxiety, I know this is not something for everybody, but even if you're really good at hard conversations, I believe the next few things I'm getting ready to share with you are things that you can apply as well, okay? So one thing that I've realized with having hard conversations is that timing is everything. Y'all hear what I just said? I said timing is everything. What I've had to learn to do, I would be one or the other, you all. I would either talk too fast or not speak up at all, right? Because a lot of times in my mind, I'm like, see, this is what they not gonna do. See what we, have you ever said that? See, what we not about to do is XYZ, right? And so I've had to learn, even with this past situation I had to navigate through, although I was feeling a lot of different things, I didn't want to speak prematurely. Hear me what I say if you're taking notes. You want to be careful not to speak prematurely. That's why you got to take some time to say, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Is this something temporary? Is this something that I'm just supposed to pray about, keep it moving? Or is this something I'm supposed to address? Is this triggering something that ain't got nothing to do with this person, but this is something that I ain't dealt with from my past? Like, you really got to process. Y'all know I talk about that with y'all often. You really got to process that before you come into a space prematurely, okay? Not only is timing everything for you, but timing is also everything for that other person, right? Because you want to be sure that when you do have that conversation, that person is going to be in a place where they can receive what it is that you have to give to them. And so you want to be mindful of that, okay? You want to take out some time to kind of flesh out where you are, how you're feeling. So then when you go to that person to have that conversation, you're not going to that person angry, huh? You're not going to that person with an attitude. You're not going to that person trying to defend yourself, because all of that is going to cloud your judgment. And then that conversation can get off all the way in left field, and then you lose track of the initial reason why you needed to have that conversation, okay? So timing is everything. And even as I was thinking about and preparing the content for this episode, I thought about how we also have to be careful not to allow people to pressure us to be in a place that we may not be in yet. I never forget when I was going through this recent situation, and I was telling my little cousin about it, and the particular person had called, and immediately, because of that performance-based background I was telling you all about, the people pleasing, I felt like I had to have an answer and a response right then. And I had to, in that moment, give myself permission to say, Brittany, if you're not ready for this, you don't have to make yourself be ready for something you're not ready for. The next day I was getting ready to have a therapy session, and I just needed the weekend to, one, get some rest. Come on, let's talk about the practicality of that, and just get away from the situation so that when I came back at the beginning of the week, I was clear, I was fresh, and I was able to really speak from, a whole place. So I think that's so important. Some of the things you can tell someone if they're trying to get you to talk about something that you're not ready to talk about, just flat out let them know, hey, I'm not in a place right now where I'm ready to have that conversation, but I will let you know when. Now, you got to be careful about that because you don't want to prolong and delay something that you know that you need to have, but at the same time, you want to be in a place where you know where you are and where you are of how you can respond to something during that time. All right. So those are some of the things that you can do to navigate through that. But conversations have a lot to do with timing. Conversations have a lot to do with timing. All right. And not letting someone pressure you into something. All right. Also, a couple of other things you want to think about when you're having a hard conversation is you want to be sure that you do not accuse, and you want to be careful that you do not assume. I used to have this bad, you got it bad. When you, okay, all right, y'all know what I'm talking about. Shout out to Usher. But I used to have this so bad, y'all, assumptions, okay? Because your girl was wounded and rejected. So, baby, I took everything personal. But can I tell you a little secret? Come on, come in, come close. Everything ain't personal. I'm trying to let that sit in. Everything ain't personal, sis. Everybody's not trying to hurt you. Now, some people, they just got their own stuff. And, hurt people, they just be out here doing stuff. But I'm telling you, a lot of times people really got a lot of stuff going on in their life. Like, they managing stuff the way you managing stuff. And, it may have just been a casualty, but it wasn't me. You really have to give people the benefit of the doubt, even if you don't even think they're worthy of it, all right? Because it's about your peace. And it's about your sanity. You can't worry about what everybody else got going on, right? But you do have to manage and maintain your heart space and your head space and your mental space, all right? And so that's super important that you not go into a situation where you are accusing someone or you are attacking someone or you are assuming certain things. Sometimes that's why it's good to ask questions. Sometimes it's good to get your detail. And y'all know we got to be mindful of these minds. Because if you sit with stuff too long, baby, your mind have been, especially the ladies. Ladies, make some noise. Y'all know how that goes. Sometimes we sit with stuff, baby, we done created whole scenarios that ain't never happened in our mind. And we're like, ma'am, that's never even happened. So you got to be careful with your mind and how you process certain things, okay? So that you can keep things into perspective. So be careful not to do that. Be careful not to assume or accuse. What I did in my situation was I used a lot of I statements. Okay, this ain't me trying to attack other people. This is letting them know, hey, this is where I am. This is when this particular situation happened. This is the space that it put me in. This is how that made me feel. You see what I'm saying? So that that other person doesn't feel like you're coming into a space where you're attacking them. Because how many of you know when you attack, defense goes up and walls go up, and then you're not really able to move forward with that particular person. And the goal is we want to be able to move forward. We want to be able to get past this and get clarity, right? All right, so that we can move on. So you want to do that. You also want to identify, like, what's the goal of this conversation? Like, where do we want to get to? And I think this is important because you have to really manage your expectations. Even as you're preparing to get in the confidence and the courage to have this hard conversation, you got to manage your expectation because you can't control how another person receives your reality. You hear what I just said? You can't control that. And for a long time, y'all, that's what I used to try to do. I used to try to, because I had this deep fear and I tried to control everything. So I wanted to tell people, this is just where I am. But then I want to tell them how to feel. You can't tell people how to feel with your truth the same way they can't tell you how to feel with yours. You see what I'm saying? And so once you're able to share that truth with that person and able to confront those particular things, you got to be okay with how they respond to that. You got to be okay if they need some time to process that. You got to be okay if they don't agree with you. You got to be okay with that. But at the end of the day, when you, I think, approach things the way I'm talking about approaching it now, then you will leave with peace and you'll leave with your dignity, knowing that given the situation, you've handled it and managed it the best way that you could. And that's what I experienced. I believe a lot of us, and I'm getting ready to wrap this up, but I believe a lot of us, we shy away from hard conversations because hard conversations require us to be vulnerable, right? They require for us to be vulnerable. It takes vulnerability to be honest with somebody and say, you know what? When you said this, it hurt me. Or when you did this, it made me feel a certain type of way. But can I tell you something? Like, your feelings matter, right? How you feel matters. And I know for a lot of us, we haven't been told that all our life, like, our feelings, it ain't been like, okay, do you feel that way? Let's keep it moving. But how you feel matters. And what I realized was I couldn't show up as my best self in my work environment, in my relationships, if I didn't have a space to be able to be honest with how I feel. Okay? And so you got to be honest with yourself about that. Like, if something is hindering you from showing up as your best self at work, it needs to be addressed. If something is hindering you from showing up as your best self in your relationships or whatever, then it may be something that you may need to consider addressing, okay? And so it's okay being vulnerable, all right? It's okay being vulnerable. It's okay with being honest with how certain things made you feel. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Manage your expectation, okay? You got to manage your expectation. At the end of the day, if you know that you've done what you needed to do for you, it doesn't matter how the other person responds, it's still a win. Do you hear what I'm telling you? It don't matter how the other side of what that's going to look like. If you know that you stood up for you, if you know that you've had that conversation because that's what you needed, girl, bro, shout out to you. So I hope this has helped you as always. I really feel, I don't know, I feel like somebody's getting encouraged or confidence, or maybe even this episode was just a reminder of like, man, I've been putting that off, and that's something I need to address. And don't allow like shame or anything to make you feel like, oh man, that's happened a long time ago. I should be over that. Let me tell y'all something before I get off of here for today. One of the biggest things that I think hinders us is us saying things to ourselves like, oh, I should be quote unquote over something by a certain time. That is so far from the truth. If you're not over something yet, you're just not over it. And it's okay. And that conversation that you've been avoiding or you have not been sure of how to approach may be the very thing that you need so that you can move forward. Did y'all hear what I just said? Because again, we can't control what anybody else does. But we do have, guess what? Full control over this. And so it could be some things that you may need to go back and revisit so that you can fully get what you need so that you can move forward with the life that you know you're called to live. All right. So I'm excited for you. I believe that we're going to be out here bossing up, having some of these hard conversations with pride, with dignity, with honor, with sobriety, honey, okay? Doing what we need to do because that's what grown women and grown men do, okay? I love y'all, and I want to hear about you all's stories of you having hard conversations and really doing what you know that needs to be done. And then what happens on the other side of that, okay? I am so excited to hear that. So if you didn't hear it today, I love you. I'm proud of you. Keep doing your thing because you're doing your thing. And I can't wait until we have another episode.